5th International Day of Women in Science. I'm really... What could be more fitting on this occasion than to start this event with the words of a well-known and very strong woman, Dolly Parton, who once said, "You got to bloom where you are planted." Today, when we are towards the end of our short spring, I think we can safely say that our women scientists, many of whom you will hear today, are blooming. We at the Office for Advancement of Women in Science and Gender Equality are proud of the progress that we have seen on campus, in the number of women PIs being hired, in the support that is being offered to women in all stages of their career, and in the community of amazing scientists that is being constantly created. And if that is not a reason to celebrate, I don't know what is. We have certainly undergone a bittersweet period since last we were together. As you all know, during the Iranian attack before this one, on June 15th, in the early hours of the morning, 2 Iranian missiles struck the Weizmann campus. One managed a direct hit on the Delora building, setting back the planned inauguration by 2 years. The second, and the one closest to home for me, was the missile that took out the back section of the Ullman building. Many labs were totally destroyed by the impact or by the resulting fires. Some simply crumbled to the ground, but every lab in both Ullman and the adjacent Wolfson building was severely damaged. Behind me, you see the damage to my own lab in Wolfson. Years of research, my own and others, was either destroyed or at the very least delayed. The extent of the damage is even now being assessed, but I think we can all agree it was the most challenging hour in Weizmann's history. I will never forget the devastation I felt looking at the remains of my lab, the research gone, the instrument destroyed. As if it was not enough, the recent war with Iran and Hezbollah affected all of us. Some of us as parents at home with our children, others as students who left their studies and their lab mates to an unknown fate, others as soldiers and spouses of soldiers. Unfortunately, for more than a month, lab work took second seat to other needs, and our original plan for this celebration had to be postponed. That was the bitter. Now for the sweet. We survived both the first attack and the recent war. Our research survived. The Weizmann management went above and beyond, at first finding any space available, even kitchens, anything to get us back to work. Our colleagues, other scientists here at the Institute, offered space in their labs, donated equipment, reagent, and samples. But most importantly, our people not only survive, but are flourishing. That includes you, our most important resource, the students, postdocs, and researchers who make up our community to give life to our science. Speaking of science, that is of course why we are here, and not just any science. Today, we will hear 20 popular science talks from some of the members of our excellent cohort of women researchers. In hosting this event, we are stating our belief that helping women find their unique voice, supporting them in speaking to the public, and encouraging them to tell their story will drive forward science for everyone. In order to combat the many years of blatant and hidden bias, we must help women take the reins of scientific leadership. This means, in part, standing at the front and explaining without apology and without hesitation. I'd like to thank the members of the committee who invested so much time in finding interesting topics and in choosing the speakers we will hear today. Hilda Darnassi, Tim Goldenberg, Eileen Cohen, Aliza Ashman, Odelia Melamed, Noga Saban, and Dr. Paromita Kaulman-Sen. Thanks are also due to Meital Salmor, who worked with our speakers to prepare them to give the best talks possible, and to Idit Wexler, who helped with the conference organization. As always, we could not move ahead with this event, or really any of our initiatives, without the hands-on management of our head of gender section and my right-hand woman and my friend, Limor Rimon. Last but not least, I want to thank each and every scientist who is presenting today. It is not always comfortable to stand up alone, just you and your slides, but it is part of our roles as scientists and communicators. For our science belongs out in the world, I hope we have contributed in some small way to your future success. And yes, I'm sure that a success you will be. Enjoy this year's International Day of Women in Science. And before we proceed, Professor Maya Schuldiner, our new Dean at the Dean of the Weizmann School of Science, רציתי להגיד מדרשה, and herself a major supporter of advancing women in science, will say a few words. Maya, please.
Good morning. On my wall in my office, I'm very, very excited from this day. I'm not apologizing for it. On the wall of my office in the graduate school, I have a picture. It's in black and white. It's a picture of the first cohort of graduate students at the Weizmann Institute of Science. The first cohort started in 1958. The picture shows clearly that these are different times. They're dressed very elegantly in their best attires. They're very serious. And there are 10 men and 1 female graduate. Of course, you can't do statistics with small numbers, but these were the statistics. About 10% of graduate students at the beginning of the studies at the Weizmann Institute of Science were females. And you can say, oh my God, this is terrible, just 10% of women. But in fact, it's a miracle, because in 1958, when the Weizmann Graduate School was created, no one even thought of the option to have gender be a basis for acceptance or rejection from the graduate school. The Hebrew University, Tel Aviv University, Technion, all started with the clear vision that higher education should not be restricted based on your gender. And it's amazing, because if you think about it, the first female graduate student was only allowed into Oxford University in the UK in 1920, and into Cambridge University only 30 years later, in 1948. And the first female graduate school was only allowed into Harvard, that we often look up to, in 1963. So when the Weizmann Institute of Science started the first graduate community, and it was clear that if you're a female, the doors are open to you, this was already a huge feat. But it was really just the beginning, right? Because it was still very, very difficult to be a female graduate student, alone, isolated, with very limited opportunities to continue in academia. And if you talk to the first generation of female professors that joined the Weizmann Institute, they will tell you that it was a tough time. There were so few of them. They felt that if they were to be allowed in to the gates of academia, they had to become part of the boys' club. They had to make sure that they did science like a man. They had to make sure that they didn't show any signs of fragility, of gentleness. They had to make sure that their parenting and their children were never heard inside the discussions because they felt that it showed a lack of commitment, a lack of seriousness, a lack of capacity to be a leading scientist. And that is really, really hard. And even when I joined the Institute about 20 years ago, still we were far from having true equality. The graduate numbers were starting to look equal, with nearly 50% of graduate students that are female, depending on the discipline, some better, some worse. You all know what I'm talking about. But there were less than 20% of females that had their independent laboratories. And if I remember correctly, I think it was under 14% that were full professors. But it was clear already then that the rules of the game are changing, because women understood that if they want true gender equality, they had to create a girls' club and not be part of the boys' club. And you could see this in everything that was being done on campus. Women looking out for graduate students and mentoring them even if they were not in their own group. Women taking time from their super, super busy schedules to sit on committees just to make sure that one more woman makes it in to the Institute. Women taking time to collect the numbers, to show the data, to go to the management, to demand change. These were women working for other women. And this created a real change. Because now, in the last years, we're seeing that often 50% of the PIs being accepted to the Institute at any given year are females. This is true change. I would say the applause go to Idit and Limor, so I want to applaud them for that. They've given so much for this to happen. So, can we rest? Can we lay back? Have we reached the goal that we are aiming for? I don't think so. In my eyes, we still have 3 things that we need to fight for. The first are women from diverse backgrounds, women from minority backgrounds. If you're a female and you're from a minority, it's not an additive effect, it's multiplicative. It is so hard for women of minorities to make it into academia, to succeed in academia, to get to the top of the academic track. We need to continue fighting for those women that are dealing with so many difficulties and hurdles along the way. The second problem is that women are still working much, much harder than their male counterparts to reach the exact same achievements. Statistics shows that in everything that we do, we have to work harder. And I'm not just talking about the fact that at home we usually work harder. I'm talking about the fact that we have to write more grants to get the same amount of money because our success rates are still not equal. That we have to spend more time on revisions because our papers are being rejected more often. That we have to apply to more places for a position because positions are not being given at an equal rate to females and males. We are still working harder. We have to run faster. We have to be better just to be at the same spot with our male counterparts. And this has to change. But the third and most important thing in my eyes is that women still don't always feel that they are entitled to being women in science. And this means that sometimes when we cry in our PI's office or the dean's office or the president's office, true story, we feel like this shows weakness instead of showing our deep emotional world. When we talk about our children and want to take maternity leave, we sometimes feel like we are isolated because of that, because people think that maybe this means we're not committed enough to science. But we know that being a wonderful parent, being a wonderful family member, this just makes you an even better scientist, committed to the well-being and to the mentorship of your students. Women are afraid to voice their opinions because maybe they have a different way of seeing things. And so what I would like to wish for us, for this day, today, is that we don't only celebrate the successes, the many successes that we've seen until today, and the distance that academia has traveled, but we also commit, each and every one of us in this room, to continue making a difference, so that we're not just allowed as women to be scientists, but that we're proud of doing science like a woman. Good luck.